Good morning. This is Vitas Casilius from CMC, and I'm waiting for a couple more people to join in and partake in our issue number 8 of the CMC Solves webinar series. So it's good morning to those of you that are here in the east or west of the U.S., and good evening to those of you in the U.K., and good Lord, what are you doing up if you're listening in from Australia? But anyway, by way of some housekeeping, let's make sure that everybody is here for the webinar they intended to be here for. Today we're going to talk about, in our continuing series of CMC Solves webinar, we're going to talk about a phenomenon we call Choose Your Own Adventure, which is a way to customize what your customer sees and experiences both on the web and other self-service devices, as well as what happens when they talk to your agents to keep it consistent. We're going to talk first about the disconnect that causes our clients to ask us about this capability, what the challenge is, and what we believe the opportunity to be. As always with our CMC Solves series, if you have any suggestions or comments, please email them to us at this address, and at the end, remember, we'll ask you to give us your feedback in a post-webinar survey. So let's start with the notion that you all know, which is that all customers are not created equal. They come in various different sizes and shapes and ages and understanding of our products and needs, but there are also different crucial ways that we measure in back office operations, whether it be collections or risk or credit. They have different balances with us. They represent different degrees of risk as we look at them on the file. The number of relationships they may have with us both within our card portfolio or across multiple products defines their difference. They may have different ways they prefer to get their payments to us, and they may represent different levels of profitability, either because of their multiple relationships or their payment history, how they deal with running balances, whether they incur fees and then consistently pay, and so forth. And finally, what devices do they prefer to interact with us on? So we're going to take all of that into account, except for the fact that when you think of how we talk to them in the call center, how we deal with them with our online banking systems today, it's pretty much we treat them all the same. And it isn't the case that we customize very much, at least it isn't our experience as we talk to our clients and prospects. But when would it make sense? It would make sense to customize if you know a prospect has specific needs that are different from some other subset of your prospects you're trying to market to. Or it would make sense to customize if the profitability that of your relationship differs by product and you know that this customer has one or more products. If a customer makes a request to us for a particular service, or if they require special handling, like there's a bankruptcy or a probate situation or a dispute or a complaint, those are times when customization is absolutely necessary. When the customer is willing to make a payment but not able, we usually make accommodations, and we'd like to customize our solution to resolve that particular customer's issue specific to them in terms of a payment program. And finally, when a customer's circumstances have changed from what we know in the data or think we know, it would be completely appropriate to change our alternative for that customer that's specific to their circumstances. And I guess it goes without saying, but I'll say it, when the regulators change the rules under our feet and require us to provide a more granular level of proof of the fairness and consistency of the way that we're treating a customer. So what I'm advocating here is not chaos, not complete individualization that is based on agent judgment that allows you to be in the case where the customer can argue and sue and win because we weren't consistent on the offers that we made, where we weren't consistent in how we responded to what the customer told us about their circumstances. Obviously, rules and logic on our responses have to be applied consistently so that it can be repeatable, so that it can be provable in an audit. Because our friends at all these various regulatory bodies around the world are holding us to and I won't say this too loudly, but a ridiculous standard of 0 mistakes ever. And we've got to be able to prove that not only are we the owners and drivers of a process that is repeatable and consistent, but we can prove that that process never fails, and if it ever does, we are on it immediately and work to remediate it immediately. Now, I had a survey question, but our friends here at GoToWebinar have lost the survey questions that we loaded last night, so I'm not going to ask you to respond. I'm just going to ask you to think about it. And that is, are you currently in a place where you standardize your floor limits and your offers, say at everybody in bucket 1 has the same limits and offers, everybody in bucket 2 has a different but same across that bucket set of offers, or everyone in our marketing segmentation model get the same offer? And I would like to have known this. Our sort of ad hoc experience with clients is that there are very few who are out of the standardized floor limits. Most people say that's our operation today, and a very small number are managing agents to individual limits per customer, if at all. So as you know, the nature of the problem is different, whether I'm talking about marketing or the other back office areas that we're going to talk about. So in marketing, I want to make sure I get the right product offer in the hands of the right customer at the right time and on the device that they prefer to respond to me from. In servicing customers, I want to make sure that when I learn the customer's unique circumstances, I engage them in the right workflow, and that my agents consistently ask the right questions, and that to the extent the situation has special needs associated with it, like bankruptcy or disputes or complaints, that I'm asking not only the right questions, but that I'm capturing the data that I need to be able to respond and resolve the issue quickly and do so in a compliant, provable way. In collections, it's all that, plus I'm trying to understand the customer and their situation. I'm trying to make sure that to the extent that their circumstances have changed, I'm on top of the changed circumstances and I'm able to provide them the right offer, again, on the right device, if that's an issue for them. But I want to make it easy for them to accept the offer and do what is in their best interest and ours to get their solution and get their situation resolved. So I was going to ask at this point, again, thanks to Citrix, I can't capture your data and respond to it and report on it. By the way, if you have opinions on these questions, please email them to us or give them to us at the end of the webinar in your feedback. But we're curious about whether you deploy any sort of dynamic customer journey management technology today in your web or in your self-service offering. You see a picture here of the Amazon website because they have been the acknowledged market leaders in providing a truly customized set of suggested things you could buy next. And they're always making suggestions that, quite frankly, I find fascinating because they're so spot on. I was talking to my son this morning at breakfast, and I told him I'd learned about 3 new bands. He's like, Dad, how did you learn about that? And I said, well, when I logged into Spotify, they said, well, you've been listening to this stuff, Vetus. You might like this other stuff. And lo and behold, I clicked on it, and 2 or 3 of them I really liked. So it's happening all around us on the marketing side. Some of us on the back office operations side have started talking about it. I don't know whether you already have experience of it or if your marketing team has reported any progress on that. So would like to hear from you on that point. What I would like you to consider, though, is what if? What if you could, from a marketing standpoint, use the same pathway for multiple customer experiences to happen so that everybody gets the same product mailing? Let's say I want to do a line increase, and I send out a mailing, whether it's an email or a letter, that offers or entices all of those people to come in and see my line increase offering. And when I point them at the same URL or even the same phone number, when they arrive, each customer experience is based on what I know about that specific individual and any new data that I capture from them, either, again, by phone or on the web, on the fly. And based on their responses, some might get the CLI offer, and that could be a high, medium, or low offer based on their current open to buy. Some might not get the CLI offer, but rather be cross-sold or upsold a different product at that point. And some, based on their initial responses, would get additional questions to try to further drill down and see what we could offer them. On the customer service side, what if everyone were directed to the same URL or call center, but when they got there, the choices and options that they were given varied by the expected issue that they're going to see. In the case of my bank, at my ATM, when I go to just cash a check or deposit a check or pull out some cash, it already prompts me and shows me my most frequent transactions I've done in the past with color coding, so I know I'm doing what I've always done. I can speed through the process even faster, and I think that's a good innovation. I was going to the airport recently, and on my way to the airport, I received an alert from the airline telling me that my flight's gate had changed, which was them proactively telling me before I asked them, where the heck's my plane leaving from? They reached out to me and gave me a proactive alert. So what if we did the same sort of thing when somebody comes into our website or comes into our call center, and based on the customer choices and options that we deem to be most likely when they come in at a particular time, we could ask certain questions of them, and based on those responses, get them either more online options, including the ability to upload documents about the situation, or to get different questions, more questions. And I'm thinking now of a customer who's opened a dispute or who has issued a complaint. When they call in or click into the website, it's pretty likely that that's why they're coming in. So why don't we start with, are you here to talk about your complaint or dispute? And if so, do you have the documentation we're waiting for? Here's the status of your complaint. We're now awaiting this document, and if you have it, click here to upload it. Or maybe present them with the chat session to get an online expert customer service rep that will help direct them to be more productive in their use of our customer service experience. And if I have to talk to them, then direct them to enter a particular best callback time and number for me to get the right customer service person to talk to them at the right time. What if in collections you could use the same path where everybody in bucket 1 does receive the mail or the email that says, you know, please contact us about your account, but when they click into the URL, their experience changes based on who they are. So I might be a very high-risk, medium balance, lousy payer who receives a landing page that basically isn't all that friendly and says, we need you to answer these questions so we can see if there's hope for you, Vitas. Whereas you, the listener in this webinar, you might be just a low-risk, lazy payer who's a couple days behind, who gets the, you know, who gets a landing page that says, hey, it probably just slipped your mind, but you know, you're 3 days behind, and if you click here, we'll take the payment from the same checking account that you paid with last time. And the ability to make that process so much easier for the customer is going to have great dividends in terms of using their responses to continue to optimize the way that you customize that customer experience. And again, it's all rule-driven based on the responses. Some people get program offers, some people get more questions, some might be directed to schedule a CSR. The actual landing page could look and feel different, like I said, for the high-risk recidivist versus the low-risk person that hasn't been in collections before. And that level of control would all be captured, logged, tracked, and provable for audit experience purposes. So again, was going to ask you whether you saw value to be gained if you could vary, truly vary, each customer's experience based on what you know about them and what you want to know about them. I'm going to assume you all think it would be very valuable, or you wouldn't be listening to the webinar. But again, email us if you have feedback on these. I don't know if you all know this, but when you do it, you can actually measure the results, and it can be quite stunning. One client, just by individualizing the offers that they made to their customer base, was able to see collections as a percentage of their balance for everybody who did come to the site improve by 17%. So of all the people that paid versus before they individualized their offers, they started receiving for every single one of those 17% higher percentage of the balance than before. But amazingly, in terms of the total dollars collected, they had a stunning result, which was by individualizing their programs, they started collecting 13 times as much as they had in the prior month. What that meant was that more people were accepting offers when the offers were more individualized. and of everybody who accepted it, they were paying a higher percentage of the balance. So very stunning results. Another client in the specific area of credit line increase management, they allowed for both agent-based and web portal-based interaction, expecting it to be about 50-50, and have found, in fact, that more than 80% of customers go to the online portal. But, and the fear of the strategists that we were working with and us as well, was that there'd be a skew between the people that went to the web versus people that talked to the agents, that the folks that were riskier or less likely to qualify would be the ones going to the web. We didn't find any difference at all in the skew between whether they talked to the web or whether they went, talked to the agent or went to the web. And furthermore, once they have been approved, we're not seeing any difference or any skew between them in the actual use of the increased line of credit. So interesting facts about being able to individualize. So obviously this is about whether we believe there to be a solution to this vexing issue, and we do, and it's called CredAgility, not surprisingly. If you think about it in the context of credit line increase, you can envision a personalized letter or email that goes out and entices people to then come to either a website or talk to an agent. When they come to the website, they might be presented something like this, but most importantly, it would ask for a verification of their stated income, and we can, based on where they fall in our segmentation model, in CredAgility in Flex Center, for those of you who are current users, you could then go in and define specific program offers that are appropriate for them given the segment that they fall into. Now the web visitor would then be presented a series of questions that would be the same as the questions the agents would be asking if they call on the phone. And regardless of whether they went through the web-based workflow or the agent-based workflow, the same decision engine and program offer would be made. If I'm talking about more complex collections issues, I might take all my customers through my segmentation and decisioning model to decide who gets which media, and my high-risk people might get offers that they either get via letter, or if I have an email address, they might see an email, whereas my lower-risk people might just be reminded gently in a letter that says, please send me your payment, or come to the website, and they might receive an email that just says, click here to pay, or as I suggested, click here to pay with the same account you paid last month. But what happens then when they click through is they could be directed to different views on our Flex site. So, and I'll show you how you do this in a minute, but the point is a lot of people are out talking about this thing called microsites. So they can build you a little one-purpose site that you can send an email campaign out and direct a person to click a link and go to a separate microsite that only does this one thing. In fact, I think we can give you that microsite functionality and a whole lot more for just the same usage of our CredAgility solution in FlexCollect for collections. So, for example, person logs in, and instead of seeing their normal, this is how much you owe and this is how much you can pay today, which might be my normal customer experience, this person who I'm concerned about from a hardship standpoint, which is a big issue, say, in Australia and in the UK right now, might immediately be linked to a I&E form where they're asked specific questions in a survey that goes into whatever level of depth you want. And remember, again, the choose your adventure nature of the workflow that we have allows you to vary the number of questions from person 1 to person 2 to person 3, because I might get the top 7 pieces of information and know that this person doesn't qualify for a hardship, so I need to go in a different direction, rather than asking them the 22 questions I need to complete the hardship evaluation. Once I get them to tell me about all of their costs, all of the different parts of their I&E, I would be able to then make the appropriate offer if it's a hardship case, or ask additional questions if it's something else. So we have something we call Hotspots, which is how you basically get the functionality that others call microsite, right? What happens is, in the workflow manager, you set up a thing called entry criteria, which I'll explain in a minute, and you define at the end of each question or each group of questions what the next step is that you want that particular individual to experience. And then when you deploy your strategy, you're there. You've already got it. You didn't need to set up a separate microsite. You didn't need to go to IT or marketing to see if you could get led onto their site. And efforts that previously took months now take a much, much, much shorter time. And more importantly, you have flexibility in that you build this microsite-like experience based on variables that you control, based on the workflow that you control. And if you see that one thing isn't leading to another the way you want it to, you've got the tools in your hands to refine it from your learning. So here's how it actually works. Under the covers within Flex Center, you define a workflow that says these are the particular steps I want individuals to go through in the case of an I&E we just saw, and these are the specific task elements that I want the person to, tasks rather, that I want them to go through. The task elements would be the individual questions that go within each task. This is further down, you look at the workflow and say, well, when I find out what their income is, I might want to ask them about a house payment and see whether the amount qualifies or doesn't qualify them and so forth. And again, the workflow is very simple, both visual tool and also very intuitive tool in terms of what's in the nodes, what the task elements are, which are basically questions. Now here's the other thing. You can create what we call entry criteria that says when somebody has this specific variable or variables in syntax, then I want them to go through this specific workflow, and only if they have these specific variables. So in this example, we defined a derived variable called pre-qualified, and within the derived variable definition, there are any number of syntactical definitions of what causes somebody to fall into the bucket called pre-qualified. But for everybody who does fall into that bucket and pre-qualified is true, they are the only ones who will see this workflow. Another example is in the e-sign area, where for certain programs I need to get an e-signature, and for other programs I do not. So why would I present the e-signature option to everybody if I have the ability to make that explicit and specific to only the people for whom I have to have it? And again, an entry criterion could be used that would say only invoke the e-sign process when these criteria are the case. So you're looking at, in this particular example from the demo, do I have an e-sign on file from this customer previously or do I not? Okay? And what I can do is before I get the confirmation of the payment, I have to go through the e-sign process if it's appropriate for a customer to go through that. So it's quite simple, actually, to build these relative to the amount of programming and logic required in the past. It's quite simple to build these workflows in our CredAgility platform. So why do we care about all this? It's the simple thing that customers like to be known. The examples I gave earlier on Amazon and some of the airline customer service, customer handling techniques makes me feel like I am known to my service provider. And the better that we can target our customers and customize the experience they have with us, the better our results will be in terms of payments, the lower our costs will be to achieve those, and not only the more profitable, but the more auditable and therefore compliant will be with our particular customer base. So the CMC solution both merits from automation to drive expense, but also the systemic nature of the business rules will drive the consistency and provability, even though you're varying individual customers' experience. I have to mention it can be equally applied not only to agent but to self-service, and it can be applied across agencies as well as internal operations. So it gives you the opportunity to take that same rigor and apply it to your external vendors' handling of your customers as well. It's also a quick win, easy to deploy, more importantly easy to change as you learn and optimize, and easy for you to demonstrate your controls to the CFPB or the OCC or whatever other alphabet soup in your country are auditing you. So what is the stake here? It's really I'm trying to reduce the cost of service. I'm trying to increase my revenue per customer or my yield per customer in something like collections. Trying to, at the end of the day, improve all of my customer experiences so that the retention of those customers and their profitability goes up. And the fact that I can control not only mine but my third party's performances as well is a big plus. And also how auditable, how provable is the solution. With ours, it's all there, it's all logged, it's all captured. With code that you write each one-time campaign, it's maybe it's easy to do the one-time campaign. It's just not easy to change it, and it's not easy to prove what you did. So I'm going to open it up for questions right now because we're a few minutes from the end of the webinar. I've got one here. So how does my customer behavior analysis that is usually done in SaaS programs interact with your system? I think you're asking how do I make what I'm doing today work together with what we're talking about. That's a great question. The answer is that what you are learning in your SaaS analysis of customers' behavior is who is most likely to respond to what, both in offers and channels and so forth. And all of that knowledge that you gain in your analysis would inform the execution that you set up in CredAgility. It would also give you the basis to run champion challengers and test your hypothesis. So my analysis says that this particular portfolio segment should be more likely to respond to this offer. Now allows me to take that hypothesis and create a very simple workflow with a holdout or an alternative content of offer and measure whether what I believe is true is actually true. So great question. Let's see. What about other e-verifications besides just e-signature? Great question as well. Because this system has the ability to capture documents, you can use it for things like complaint handling and dispute handling, and there are clients doing that today, where normally in the process you have this big manual step where you've got to stop, ask the person to send something or fax or email it to you. You have to have somebody who manually attaches that document to a case and then restarts the process. Well, with this solution you can build a workflow that says at this step I need an uploaded document that can either be uploaded directly by the customer over the self-service portal or by an agent who's on the phone with the customer, so that I could take a process that lasts weeks and make it a process that lasts minutes. Other e-verifications, like what if I want to verify your address in a particular point in time? So I was told by one client that they're being told they need to verify addresses every 6 months. So if it's been more than 6 months, Mr. Casilius, if I log into the website, rather than getting to deal with my issue, I might first present a verification step that says, Mr. Casilius, we need to make sure our records are accurate. Are you still at blah, blah, blah address, 123 Maiden Lane, New York City, blah, 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 right? So all of these kind of choose-your-adventure capabilities can be put to whatever task it is that, that's causing you to have manual processes. So I would ask you as a listener to email us your manual processes and let us figure out how we can put together a solution, lickety-split, that will give you the benefits that you're looking for. I think we're out of time. I appreciate your time very, very much. So good midday, good late day, or good very, very late in the night to all of you. And look forward to talking to you next month. Thank you.